In the blackened halls of my sanctum, where knowledge festers and shadows whisper secrets untold, I have unraveled the truth of Orcus, a truth veiled in deception, contradiction, and the echoes of the damned. The Prince of the Undead is not only a name, not just a force. He's a blight upon the fabric of existence. And yet, his beginning remains obscured, lost in the churning madness of the abyss and the shifting sands of reality itself. Some claim he was once mortal, a sorcerer or priest who sold his soul to darkness long before death claimed him. A pitiful, wretched thing clawing through the filth of the abyss, ascending not by destiny, but by raw, unrelenting malice. He bled, he suffered, he perished 1,000 times over in the nightmarish cycle of abyssal rebirth. Lava to Main, Main to Dretch, Dretch to Rutakin, to Vrok, to Glabrezu, to Nalfashni, until at last he towered as a Bela, a living pyre of hatred and slaughter. But I know the abyss, and I know it does not birth its king so simply. Another story, older than the dust of Thanatos, speaks of Orcus not as a thing that rose, but as a thing that always was. A primordial force, birthed in the Dawn War, a beast of entropy and ruin that lurked in the howling dark before the abyss had form. It tells of his part in casting down Obox Ob, the former prince of demons, of how he rode the blood rift alongside Baphomet, and Demogorgon, unshackled from the order of creation itself. There is weight in this tale, a weight that bends the nature of time, twisting the question of whether Orcus was ever truly born at all. Yet, even these truths, if they are truths, are stepping stones to the horror he has become. He sits now upon his decayed throne in Thanatos, the belly of death, a realm of stagnant silence where the air is thick with despair. His hunger is endless, his hatred boundless, his will bent toward a singular end, not conquest, not dominion, but cessation, to rewrite the pulse of the living, to replace the rhythm of breath and blood with the stillness of undeath. He does not seek rulership over existence. He seeks to rot it from within, until only the cold mockery of life remains. His influence is insidious, creeping through the cracks of dying worlds. I have seen his sigils scrawled in the blood of the murdered, heard his name in the desperate prayers of the forsaken. His cultists revere him, and they are consumed by him, their flesh sloughing away as they offer their essence to his will. There is no bargaining with Orcus, no turning back once his touch is felt. He is not a demon lord. He is a plague upon all things that draw breath. But I have seen greater things fall. The abyss is not a kingdom. It is a battlefield without end. Thrones crumble, princes are devoured, and history is rewritten in the ichor of the vanquished. Orcus has died before, and he will die again. The question is not whether he will fall, but whether it will be soon enough. And when that day comes, when his putrid throne is cast into the abyssal void, I will ensure that no whisper of his name lingers. I will watch as the last ember of his foul will is extinguished, and I will inscribe upon the ashes of his ruin a single truth. Orcus is a massive, bloated demon prince. After becoming complacent with his wars against Demogorgon and Grazist waning, Orcus was murdered and deposed. But then Orcus rose from the dead, an undead demon, and took the name Tenebrous for a time, hiding in the shadows and waiting to take his revenge. Now he has reinstated himself to his former position in Naratir, his terrible fortress city in the abyss on Thanatos, the layer he rules. Once again, Orcus finds himself in a struggle for dominance with many of the other demon lords. Orcus is no longer content to grow old and fat, feeding on larvae in his castle. He focuses his anger and hate on the absolute destruction of his enemies and the spread of woe and havoc among mortals. Truly a demon reborn, Orcus is more terrible and more dangerous than ever. Orcus hates both Demogorgon and Grazist. He resents them for their power, and he covets their realms. Orcus commands a host of undead, as well as armies of demons that ravage the fields of the abyss that they cross. Probably because he has an identifiable, if loathsome, portfolio of carnage. Orcus is worshipped as a god more often than most of the other demon princes are. Although Demogorgon might actually be more powerful, Orcus may be closer to ascending to true godhood. Standing at 15 feet tall, Orcus is a massive demon. His head bears a striking resemblance to that of a ram, and his legs end in cloven hooves. Bat-like wings complete the picture of this archetypal demon. In fact, when commoners think of demons, they most likely think of some terrible picture of Orcus that they once saw somewhere. Orcus is best known in some circles for his wand, an artifact of malefic might. This wand, more accurately described as a rod, is made of black iron and obsidian, and topped with a skull. Orcus relies heavily on his wand in combat, much preferring to engage in melee and kill foes with the artifact. Orcus is in many ways a contradictory figure. He does not delight in his charges, the undead, and has not taken up the self-proclaimed mantle of Prince of the Undead out of devotion or allegiance. If anything, the Demon Lord despises undead. He has little contempt for them and uses them without thought or consideration. Of course, Orcus despises the living as well. He hates all things and seethes with utter revulsion and loathing at all times. He craves only personal power and the spread of misery and destruction for all others. Occasionally, Orcus allows his wand to be found by a mortal in order to wreak greater chaos and evil among those inhabiting the material plane. This sort of dalliance lasts only for a short time, perhaps a year or two at most, before the bloated prince grows bored and reclaims his artifact, usually along with the soul of whoever currently wields it. Orcus is in a constant state of war with his rivals Demogorgon and Grazist. More often than not, actual warfare occurs between his armies of undead and demons and Grazist's hordes of monsters and demons. Strife with Demogorgon often takes a more subtle guise, that of assassination and sabotage. This is usually because both his and Demogorgon's full armies are simultaneously warring against the forces of Grazist. However, sometimes the legions of Orcus and Demogorgon meet in the course of their struggle against Grazist, and then they attack each other as viciously as they fight the legions of the Dark Prince. The cult of Orcus is widespread, with a more significant following among humanoids than most demon princes can boast. In particular, orcs, half-orcs, ogres, and giants revere Orcus, as do a large number of corrupt and despicable humans. His temples are usually hidden, and his worshippers form secret societies, living in otherwise normal communities. Other of his temples are strongholds full of undead, where wicked lords commit atrocities and wage wars in the demon prince's name. Sometimes, an entire orc tribe devotes itself to the prince of the undead, but such individuals are shunned even by other orcs. Orcus demands living sacrifice as a part of his rituals. Blood and skulls are an important part of the imagery used in his worship. Idols and altars are often surrounded by or built upon tall piles of skulls. Intelligent undead never willingly serve Orcus, as they are more likely to venerate deities like Vecna. However, many vampires, liches, and other undead creatures are forced into his service by dark pacts or compelling magic. Priests and particularly influential followers of Orcus are called skulls, while high priests are called skull lords. Often, a single skull lord gains so much power and influence among the followers of Orcus that he adopts the mantle of Skull King or Skull Queen. It is common for followers of Orcus to carry black skull-topped scepters around, not in order to fool anyone into thinking that they wield the actual wand of Orcus, but to represent and remind others of their lord's dread might. They also often wear skull masks and black robes with hoods, or goat-horned headdresses and silver robes. Perhaps one of the most powerful and infamous priests of Orcus alive today is an unusual human named Qua Nomag. Not only is Qua Nomag a despicable creature in virtually every way, but he was instrumental in restoring Orcus back to the living. This evil cleric used an obscene ritual on the astral plane that restored Orcus. Other notes indicate that this bloated demon prince of the undead seeks to end all life in the cosmos, replacing the living with immortal undead creatures that answer only to him. In this grim future, the many suns of the material plane are extinguished, and all hope has faded away. All that remains is the eternally static realm of the living dead. Orcus is the universe's staunchest advocate of stagnation. He sees the activity of life as noisy, crude, and maddening. It rakes at his sense like the claws of a rat scratch across a hard floor. In his view, the universe can know peace only when life's incessant hum is replaced with the peace and quiet of the world of the dead. Tasha opens a book of vile magic, the Book of Vile Darkness, or at least a subsection of it, in contemplation for her many years within the abyss. Oh, Orcus, how many times must we watch this spectacle unfold? I'd almost feel sorry for him, if I were capable of such dull sentiments. But really, how can one pity a creature so predictable? He claws his way out of the abyss, spreads his rot across the world, declares his dominion over death itself, and then, inevitably, some band of would-be heroes sends him right back where he belongs. Again, and again, and again. If anything, I should be thanking him. He's a constant reminder of the futility of brute force, of the idiocy of obsession, and, more importantly, he keeps my divinations from growing dull. Take Zentil Keep, for example. The year of rogue dragons, an absolute disaster, which naturally made for delightful entertainment. This Maganus fool spent a decade weaving his little schemes, also he could hand over his soul like a trinket at a market stall. And for what? A fleeting moment of power before he was torn apart by the very forces he sought to command. There's a lesson in that, I suppose, though I doubt anyone learned it. Orcus, of course, wasted no time reveling in the carnage. He stormed through the streets, dragging his lieutenants behind him like some grotesque parade. A vampire lord, a lich, and that dreary Qua Nomag, all marching toward yet another inevitable failure. Did they truly believe they could hold their ground? That Zentil Keep would remain a monument to their conquest? Foolish. History has no patience for the ambitions of the mindless, and so, when the dust settled, the demon hordes were banished, their master cast back into his abyssal pit. Predictable, but not without its charms. Then there was the Underdark, another grand stage, another feeble grasp for control, summoned once again, because apparently the denizens of Toril cannot resist calling upon things they cannot hope to understand. Orcus found himself beneath the earth, raising a dead elder brain like some grotesque marionette. Cyrog, they called it. A fascinating experiment, though dreadfully misguided. Even I might have hesitated before attempting such a thing, and I have the benefit of being brilliant. But in the end, his ambition exceeded his competence, as it always does. Demogorgon himself saw to that, tossing the Prince of the Undead back into the filth from whence he came. And yet, he persists. Oh, the death curse was a lovely little disaster. Souls strangled in the weave of existence, the natural order thrown into delightful disarray. The abyss was restless, its lords bickering like spoiled children denied a feast. Grazest, ever the schemer, played his little games, tangling Demogorgon in his machinations. But Orcus, for once, outmaneuvered them both. I must admit, I was impressed. He carved his way into Chult, his minions creeping through the jungle, searching for the soulmonger. If he had succeeded, well, that would have been something worth remembering. But, as always, he failed, as he always will. The soulmonger was lost to him, and he, once again, was sent hurtling back to the abyss with nothing to show for it. And thus, the cycle continues. Power is not simply taken, it must be understood, wielded with precision, with elegance. And Orcus, he is an ox trying to dance in the halls of sorcery, a brute wielding power he can never truly master. He does not see the game, he sees only the prize, and that is why he will never win. Still, I watch. I collect my knowledge. I spin my own webs. Perhaps one day, when I grow tired of this endless cycle, I will intervene. Not for the sake of the world, what a dreary notion, but for the sake of my own amusement. And should the Prince of the Undead find himself in my grasp, well, I do so love fine artifacts. And that wand of his would look absolutely stunning in my collection. Imagine it. The wand of Orcus, resting atop a pedestal in my grand hall. Its decayed skull, a perfect contrast to my exquisite decor. Perhaps I'd enchant it so that it sings when guests arrive. Something dreadful and tragic. A dirge to commemorate all the times he has failed. Or, better yet, I could fashion a lovely brooch from its handle. A fashion statement both gaudy and insulting. I can already picture the look of sheer fury in his hollow eyes when he sees what I've done with his precious relic. And why stop there? Thanatos itself, his wretched domain, would make a fascinating vacation spot. The icy wastes, the endless fields of despair, the groaning legions of undead, all ripe for reinvention. With the right spells, I could transform the whole plain into a winter palace. A fitting retreat where I might entertain my guests. A touch of glamour here, a flick of the wrist there, and soon Thanatos would be something more refined, less of a grim, dreary abyss, and more of an exclusive haunt for the magically inclined. But that is a dream for another time. For now, I am content to watch the great lord of the undead stumble, again and again and again. After all, I have eternity to amuse myself, and Orcus, well, he is always good for a laugh. Orcus, a name whispered in dread, a shadow that slithers through the cracks of the multiverse, seeking to consume all it touches. I have studied him as one studies a plague, dispassionately, methodically, with the cold precision required to understand something so utterly grotesque. And make no mistake, Orcus is grotesque in thought, in ambition, in the nihilistic hunger that festers at the heart of his being. He fancies himself the final arbiter of existence. I will be the last creature when I am done, he claims. The cosmos will then be perfect, free of the braying abominations that are all other living things. Such words would be laughable if they were not so deeply disturbing. It is a sentiment born not of wisdom, nor even of cunning, but of festering resentment, a thing that crawled up from the depths of the abyss, dragging its own self-loathing behind it like a rotting shroud. Orcus teaches us much, though not in the way he intends. He believes he embodies the final truth of existence, that entropy is inevitable, that undeath is the natural state of all things, that his dominion is preordained. But what he fails to comprehend, what he cannot comprehend, is that destruction alone is an empty pursuit. Power without intellect, without purpose, is nothing but the thrashing of a chained beast.